So what do you think the first 100 days in, what stands out to you?
I think that if you look to other presidencies, and often they want to tout legislative accomplishments in these first 100 days or what they're trying to push through, the margins are where they are. And it's going to be difficult to fill a pothole with Congress the way that it is. I think that we knew day one that the executive actions and executive orders were the blueprint for what he wanted to achieve. And trying to get an early nod from the courts on the scope of his power when it comes to some of these deportation cases, when it comes to, rearranging global partnerships, whether it be with the economy or alliances, those objectives, and then, also undoing everything that Biden did, if he can undo those things, trying to take the stain off, if, you're in the White House now, and see if you can use the eraser, like they did today, and tout a lot of that today with closing the border that was purposely opened. I think shock and awe is, an accurate descriptor, but I think that we had the blueprint day one.
Do you think the Liberation Day, on top of the massive immigration pickups, the shutdown of the border, do you think Liberation Day is rolling out differently than they thought? The ramifications, it affected the market so severely.
You mean for the tariffs?
Yeah, from the tariffs.
Yeah, I do. Here's what I think happened. I think that they put a formula together that the world wasn't expecting, and that really, sort of pumped the brakes on everyone's understanding of how this was going to go. And then they were flooded with phone calls. And you did hear from the Treasury Secretary and from the Commerce Secretary that we just couldn't manage the volume while also being respectful to all of these countries that were trying to deal in good faith. So we did the pause for 90 days. Now it gives them some time to actually put together, contours of a plan and get sort of deals in theory. And then
the Wall Street Journal says they're going to be doing 6 deals a week over the next up until July when the 90 days are out. If it's ever not done, they get the reciprocal.
Yeah.
They get the reciprocal tariffs. It'll be interesting because he says, let's the trade guys worry about the details, but Scott Bessent will sign off on the framework. And I think one person's emerged out of this as credible on all sides, like Steve Mnuchin kind of did. It is Scott Bessent, isn't it?
It is. I think it is because he's a Wall Street guy. He knows the markets. He knew what was happening with the bond market when, you see the 10-year yield go vertical overnight as the tariffs are going into place. And it's like, listen, it takes a long time to build credibility, for the U.S. is a good place to keep your money. And when you start to lose that, it's very hard to get back. And I think that, bringing that understanding to the table, something that Yellen absolutely did not have. She didn't understand the markets. He's able to talk to the president about things that everyday people are really going to pay attention to and sort of see around the corner and make sure that we're not veering into territory that'll be hard to back out of. I think it was smart that they gave themselves some more time to get these deals done. I think they will get the bulk of them done within the 90 days. China's the big question. And we hear from this White House that they are talking actively to China. China insists that there are no talks happening at all. But, who knows when we're going to see those details come out and if it'll be before we see empty shipping containers and that kind of thing.
So here is their representative, their foreign minister spokesperson, when asked, are you talking with the U.S.?
China and the U.S. are not having any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. The U.S. should not confuse the public.
So I talked to somebody, they said today with the White House that we are absolutely talking. At lower level, they're talking. President says that he's talked to President Xi, I don't know when, but the pushback is pretty strong. Evidently, underneath, there's things going on, but it hasn't risen up to the highest level. Are we waiting to see who's going to blink first?
Well, if you take the White House at face value, the blink has already happened and the conversations are happening. China doesn't want to maybe admit that that's happening. And I think that the president, said, Xi called me. He wouldn't answer whether it was after the tariffs or not, but that the lower level negotiations are happening. And Bessent said, speaking off camera to reporters after a speech in Washington last week, that the tariffs will come down in a mutual way because both sides think this is unsustainable. And once they get sort of the contours of an agreement at the lower level, bring the leaders together and get the more substantive deal done. But you might see a mutual lowering before the two leaders even speak. So I think that that's maybe what's coming together right now.
All right. We have the big, beautiful bill. I want to talk to you about that when we get back, because today the Treasury Secretary is going to Capitol Hill to meet with, I guess, the big six. They all have nicknames, but all the players who are going to decide if the major piece of legislation is going to get passed on reconciliation,